With the gaming industry seemingly burning down to the ground as we speak, there's undeniably a lot to be sad, mad, and just bummed out about. Unlike when I was young, where all I could do is think about how awesome gaming would be in the future, I'm not so excited about where this hobby is heading in the not so distant future. But with a big but, great games are still coming out, and so I wanted to go over 10 potentially awesome games that are expected to release in the second half of this year. This list is in no particular order and is a bit of a mix of my taste and more general interest. I wasn't sure there was really any other game I could start off the list with besides the biggest, loudest game ever, and that of course being GTA 6. I'll separate this into two parts, the price and then the game itself. I always feel a bit mixed about base and deluxe versions because on one hand they can offer additional content at a deal for the more hardcore of players, while at the same time it is a slippery slope to full-on gatekeeping significant content from an already high base price. From what I've seen, the Ultimate Edition seems to consist of additional cosmetics, some vehicles and shops, which we'll have to wait and see on how significant the difference is. Either way, I can't help but ask, is anything shown off or included really worth bumping up the price 120% over that already high $80 price tag? Now, will GTA have enough quality content to justify the $80 price tag in relation to other games? Almost certainly, but I personally will be passing on the game at that price because I feel the precedent this sets is just bad for all consumers in the medium to long term, and it's not like they wouldn't have still made more money than God at $70 as well, and so I just feel I can't justify that $80. Also, at $80, there will be no physical version with an actual disc, which isn't inherently a deal breaker for me, but I can say it definitely does hurt my enthusiasm. Once I do eventually get my hands on the game, probably sometime next year when it goes on sale, there seems to be a lot to look forward to. Rockstar always creates industry-leading open-world sandboxes to play in. I'm not sure why anyone would ever want to live in Florida in real life, but visiting an over-the-top digital version with the most immaculate attention to detail sounds like a blast. We all know the map is going to be massive, but far more exciting is the vitality of every sub-region that is going to have details and secrets to find for basically ever. When I was at a much too young age, I'd played GTA for the first time, and while definitely inappropriate, it's easily one of the most transformative video game experiences of my life. The degree of interactivity and freedom blew my little mind away, to the point where many of my favorite games today are just trying to recapture just a small fraction of that feeling. Funny enough for how impactful this series has been to me as a whole, on the narrative front, none of the individual entries have left nearly as much of an impact on me as the Red Dead series. From what I've seen, there's a lot to be hopeful about, especially after that level of excellence that was RDR2's story. Tell me, what are your thoughts on GTA 6 from the price to the game and everything in between? Control Resonant wasn't too high on my anticipated list for this year because I've never played any Remedy games. For all I know, I may have loved it, but at the time Max Payne never looked all that interesting to me, so I passed on it. I'm also not a big fan of survival horror, so skipped the Alan Wake series, and wasn't following that many of the latest releases in 2019, so I didn't even know about Control's existence until a few years ago. Fast forward to today, and I still haven't played Control, but am looking forward to Control Resonant. All of Remedy's games appear to have an interesting setting that gives off a unique blend of weird and surreal. This version of New York appears to be playing with orientation and verticality in a way that feels very comparable to the movie Inception. Pushing me from curious to interested is the gameplay, specifically the combat. It's always hard to tell how a game will feel by just watching it, but Control Resonant seems to have a satisfying action loop. Animations are creative and varied, while the attacks are brimming with impact. I'll be going into Control Resonant a bit blind, but sometimes those lead to the best experiences. In comparison to the last two titles, Screenbound is a significantly smaller experience, but I can't wait to give it a try. The basic premise seems to be that you are playing a game within a game where you need to navigate and manage both worlds at the same time. Very meta. On the surface, it's a super simple concept, yet the possibilities are so plentiful and exciting. In a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me of how certain DS titles would show you different perspectives to an in-game world, but nothing quite like this. Your actions on the Game Boy-like device impact your character within the outer 3D world simultaneously. If your childhood was anything like mine, Screenbound looks to be tapping into some nostalgia with both the in-game 16-bit art style, but also just the actual act of walking around while glued to a tiny screen, hopefully paying attention to your surroundings. Beyond the art style, things get very interesting when you take into account certain aspects of gameplay that are unique to one of the two in-game worlds that directly and indirectly impacts the other. Seems like this could get fairly complicated fairly quickly, so you might either love or hate the idea, but either way you gotta respect the creativity. In between many of the massive traditional releases, this seems to be a perfect palate cleanser that I'll be keeping my eye on. I was never a big Call of Duty guy, but I've always found the Halo series to be extremely interesting. Shooters don't always grab my attention, but the Halo series lore, characters, and music pulled me in at a very young age. It was one of the first sci-fi games I was introduced to that didn't feel overly contrived or like that of a synthetic copy of a particular movie. There are clear inspirations, and the original narrative is on the simpler side, but they managed to pull off an original feeling experience with its story, world building, and presentation. The first Halo I beat was 2, funny enough, but my first interaction with the series was with the Mac demo of Combat Evolved. The demo was just the mission The Silent Cartographer, which I've probably played over a dozen times. Even though the remaster still holds up pretty well today, Combat Evolved is a great choice to give the remake treatment to. Its bones are still great, and at this point the original and the remaster are old enough that many younger players have just never experienced either of them. What better place to start than the beloved first? In addition to modernizing the visuals and gameplay, there's also 3 prequel missions being included as well to help excite existing fans beyond just prettier game is prettier. I'm curious about how long and elaborate these prequel missions will be, but even just the base game alone has me excited to revisit, and of course with proper couch co-op split screen. Have you played the original Halo, and or are you excited for this remake? The second remake on this list is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Unlike Halo Campaign Evolved, I have not played the original. Historically, I have not been a big Zelda fan, and I guess to this day I'm still not really a huge fan of the franchise, but I have grown to respect it. As I've gotten older and have gone back to try more classics, I've still never played Ocarina of Time. I find the N64 generation in particular to be in a lot of ways the hardest for me to go back and get into if it's not something I've already played before, just due to a lot of those early 3D growing pains. But I am excited to be given an opportunity to experience this title in a modern lens. The single trailer that has been released to this point hasn't really shown much, but it does look to be pretty for a Switch game. I'm curious if this will release in November next to GTA 6, since Nintendo doesn't seem to fear any competition, which when I look at the calendar is kind of funny because maybe I'm crazy, but if a game is of a different genre and scope, I would much rather release closer to GTA than be drowned out in September. GTA 6 will appeal to the most gamers, but there will be a vacuum left for those who don't care, which might be where something like this Ocarina of Time remake may shine the brightest. I never had an Xbox 360 of my own, and so the Gears series just kind of flew by me. I'm also one of those people who are turned off by overly gritty, dull brown art directions, at least especially ones of that era. With that said though, E-Day does look to be mighty interesting, and I know for many it's their most anticipated game for the rest of the year. Being a prequel, I would imagine it's not the worst place to jump in for newcomers like myself. Knowing as little as I do, I'm curious to see how much of the story will focus on Marcus transforming into a hardened veteran who's forced to make hard decisions along the way. In a post-apocalyptic setting, it's an always interesting dilemma to see to what extent does one lose their humanity along the way, or does their unbreakable compassion end up to be a superpower by the end? Gameplay looks satisfying and visuals are engrossing. Not sure what will be gorier, this or Marvel's Wolverine. What do you think? What's your relationship with the Gears series, and how are you feeling about Gears of War E-Day? I'm usually one of those boring Star Wars fans where if there aren't lightsabers in the game, I'm not interested. However, Star Wars Galactic Racer looks awesome. There's a lot of information out about the game, and there's a lot of cool concepts at play. The actual racing itself looks to capture the high-stake thrills of pod racing, with the smallest mistakes leading to total destruction. The developers have implemented roguelike elements where deaths are unforgiving, but also offer an opportunity to bring over aspects of your progression to the next run. Personally, I'm a bit tired of the roguelitification of everything, but in the context of a racer, I think it's actually a great idea. Adding an additional layer to every race beyond winning and not crashing out along the way is the environment. Different courses seem to offer various environmental challenges, from layouts to shortcuts and even the temperature. One of the aspects that intrigues me the most is the narrative. There's an overarching story that accompanies each of the races. We'll have to wait and see if it's any good, but in concept I love the idea of having an extra layer of investment to every race beyond just winning. Between everything mentioned, I'm psyched to check out Star Wars Galactic Racer when it releases this October. Easily one of my most anticipated games the rest of the year is Orbitals. It's a split-screen cooperative adventure in the veins of a Haze-like title. While similar, it looks to have much of its own identity, with this no more apparent than with the art style. The developers at Shapefarm have gone with a 1980s anime-inspired look, and I love it. A lot of modern anime look great, but something about this time in history just hits different. I'm no expert, but to my amateur eye, I would totally believe someone if they showed me one of the cutscenes and claimed it was from 1982. In motion, the gameplay has more modern tells, but still seems to be selling that feeling of being in an anime of that era. The two protagonists, Omura and Maki, look interesting. I'm getting a lot of teamwork, loyalty, and friendship vibes with a subtle layer of unconfessed romance. Like It Takes Two and Split Fiction, it looks like players will have to work together with a friend to overcome a series of challenges and puzzles that are constantly changing things up on you. Unlike recent Haze-like games, there seems to be a bit more of a grounded focus genre-wise, while also offering a bit more choice in picking roles during cooperative gameplay. Even without looking that deep into the game, looking from the outside, a cooperative, split-screen 1980s anime-inspired sci-fi adventure has me hooked. One of my favorite games from 2021 was Kena Bridge of Spirits, and lucky for me, we are getting a sequel. One of the aspects that stood out to me with the first title was the Pixar-like animation quality that looks to be even more impressive this time around. I love it when developers use all the power of modern hardware to go for an original, distinct look over some generic hyper-realism. From the trailer that has been released, it looks like Kena Scars of Kosmora is a good old-fashioned bigger and better sequel. In Bridge of Spirits, levels were well thought out, but felt a bit archaic in scale, like that of something of a PS2 era game. From what I've seen, I doubt Ember Lab is opting for the total freedom of an open world, but more likely a wide linear approach like that of the recent God of War games. Either way, I do think it's safe to assume we are dealing with a much larger explorable area with the inclusion of the magical crystal dog, wolf, antelope, fox, peacock mount looking thing. Between the upgraded visuals and expanded level design, I'm excited to see what new areas Ember Lab has been cooking up. There hasn't been a whole lot of combat shown off, but it does look to be a bit faster paced with new enemy designs. I feel the first game had a fantastic foundation, so improving upon that feels like a recipe for success here. Tying combat into the narrative themes, Kena would fight spirits and monsters to help them overcome their troubles, resulting in the healing of those spirits and the surrounding land. It's not an original concept, but it is timeless. As of right now, we do not have a release date, but the one trailer that has been shown off does look pretty far along, but you never know with polish time seemingly endless. With it being July and not even having a month at this point, I'm guessing this gets delayed into the first half of next year. I'm not sure if it would be because they need more time to polish, or if it's because of how it fits into the calendar. Regardless, whenever Kena Scars of Kosmora does come out, I'll be ready to play it. The last game on today's list is Marvel's Wolverine. You can say a lot of things about this game, but you can't say there isn't a lot of blood. It's honestly a little distracting how much blood there is and also how quickly it disappears. But it is undeniably sick how Logan heals in real time, where you can see his flesh regenerating. Outside of gallons of blood, combat looks to be sharing a lot with the Marvel Spider-Man series. I love how Insomniac took the Batman Arkham formula and Spider-Manified it where it felt similar but also right for that character, and so I have high hopes in their ability to implement it here for Wolverine. From what we've seen, it looks like defensively Logan's going to be relying more on sidestepping versus jumping over and sliding under enemies. On a macro level, one of the biggest differences here from the Spider-Man games is the linear level approach, which I find to be a welcome change of pace since it allows for developers to really flesh out each location versus just one big open world. Plus, I just can't imagine Logan traversing in an open world being nearly as fun as swinging around in Spider-Man. Character designs are a bit interesting. I'm digging Wolverine's faithful but believable costume and just overall design. Jean Grey and some of the other characters we only got a glimpse of do look a little off, but I'm going in with an open mind. Are you excited for Marvel's Wolverine, or is it just not for you? In fact, out of all the games mentioned, what are you looking forward to the most? I'm also keeping my eyes on The Blood of Dawnwalker and Marvel's Tokon Fighting Souls, but wanted to make some room for new games on this list since I've already mentioned them before. As always, I appreciate you for watching, and until next time, see ya.